Morning, everyone. Morning, guys. How's everybody doing? I hope I'm audible and visible. If I'm audible and visible, could you please let me know in the chat section? Now, we have been focusing on our initiatives towards Mains 2023 and this Mission Mains 2023, where me and Anshum sir, we both have been working together to make sure to bring to you guys important and relevant current affairs for Mains 2023. Now, in this effort, we have made sure in the past and today as well, we are going to continue that effort to bring to you guys all the relevant and important information that is going to help you guys to crack this examination, to make sure that your journey, to make sure that your preparation is far more robust than before. And this initiative is brought to you by Sriram IAS. Now, in today's session, I'm going to bring to you important current affairs, not just from the field of economics, but also from environment, from art and culture, because it has been a while, from social issues, and of course, our beloved economics. If you want the robustness of this course that we are bringing to you every Saturday and Sunday, then I recommend that mark your calendars every Saturday and Sunday till mains examination. We are going to bring to you important and relevant current affairs for your mains preparation. All right, Chaliye. Now let's begin and continue with our efforts. As far as our previous sessions are concerned, in our previous sessions, we have made sure that we pick up on the reports and on various indices and reports associated with those indices, where the topic is going to help you write good introductions, conclusions, or main body of the answer and help you score better in your mains examination. Now, in today's session, it's not just that. I am going to pick up those topics which are going to be relevant for your mains answer writing, where you can find direct questions. In the past, it has happened. In the future, it will happen. Direct questions will be coming from such topics because these topics are evergreen. These evergreen topics are going to help you in thriving and getting better marks as well. All right? Tell you. Now, let's begin with the topic of Neo-Buddhism. Now, every year in October, thousands of people they assemble at Nagpur's Diksha Bhumi. Now, this Diksha Bhumi is that area where Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is paid homage to. Now, his conversion towards Buddhism and a new style of Buddhism, which is different from the Buddhism that is practiced, be it Tibet, be it rest of the world, and of course Southeast Asia. Now, there are somewhere around 5,000 or Tamilians of Myanmar. They have accepted Buddhism in Rangoon under the leadership of Chan Thun, Justice of Supreme Court of Union of Burma in 1956. In 1956, this happened. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar founded that school of Buddhism, which spiritually satisfies and basically preaches love and compassion for all. The basic aspect being karuna, which is compassion for others. Now, this Buddhism or the Neo Buddhism that we are talking about is based on the principles of French Revolution, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Based on that, he founded Buddhism which is rooted in India's civilization. Now, because this Buddhism is different from, or rather is a specialized school from, compared to the old school and rather the traditional forms of Buddhism. That is why it is being called a neo Buddhist movement or a new school of Buddhism, which is called as Ambedkarite Buddhism or Ambedkarite Buddhist movement as well, and sometimes even referred to as modern Buddhist movement. Now, this is a religious and also a socio political movement. It's not just religious, and that has changed particularly the lives of the excluded, the Dalits in India. Why? Because Dr. B.R. Ambedkar made certain efforts to create a more egalitarian life for these individuals. It was proposed as a mass movement of conversion, but well within the folds of the religions at the time, at the ancient times. We talk about, say, the Hinduism, the Jainism, and Buddhism. All these, good morning, UPSC. UPSC Wali, good morning. Morning. Now, based on that, this neo school of Buddhism has emerged. We will understand the difference between the Buddhism that existed and the modern Buddhism that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Sahab had brought about. Now, it does not really accept in totality all the scriptures of Buddhism, which is from the Theravadin school or Mahayana school or Vajrayana school or Hinayana school. It rather propagates the fourth yan, the fourth vehicle, or the Navyan. Remember this. This is not just relevant for your mains examination, it's also relevant for your prelims examination. A new kind of modernistic enlightenment version of Dhamma, the sacred wheel. Now, Ambedkar and his idea about Buddhism is basically to defy the core doctrines of Buddhism. It is not to work in line with it, but rather to defy these doctrines. Further, you have to make sure that Buddha's Parivaja, which particularly is entirely the core of Buddhist movement when you talk about the ancient Buddhism, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was particularly against that. In fact, according to Dr. Ambedkar, the Four Noble Truths are basically the gospel of pessimism, according to him. He considered it to be the gospel of pessimism, and he wanted to add new and different kind of scriptures for Buddhist monks of a later era. For him, the idea of anat, which is anant, the doctrine stating that human beings are soulless, is problematic and asked his followers to disregard it, which entirely changes the way someone would perceive Buddhism. Nirvana, according to Ambedkar Sahab, is not some otherworldly state of perfect life. He's considering life and birth, highest happiness or salvation or liberation, basically, मोक्ष जिसको हम कहते हैं, from the cycle of birth and rebirth. It is not some otherworldly state. It is not something जो कि इस दुनिया से बाहर जाकर आएगा. According to Ambedkar Sahab, Nirvana is a socio-political kingdom of righteousness on earth, on this planet itself. Right? चलिए. This is why Ambedkar's Buddhism is less of spiritual or religious and more of socio-political upliftment. In fact, if you look at it, because it's a mains perspective, you will have to write down a lot of things. In fact, if you look at it, the movement of Buddhism that happened in ancient times and also the neo Buddhism that was brought about by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Sahab, you will find a lot of similarities in these movements. Because even if you talk about the onset of Buddhism in ancient times, it was related to the upliftment of certain sections of society. Even today, if you talk about this new school of Buddhism, again is talking about upliftment of certain sections of society through various processes. And this is where everything turns to be quite beautiful if you notice. Quite beautiful to the extent that it tells you that Buddhism has always been a reformist movement. Now, what is the role of this Neo Buddhism? Let's look at it and then proceed further. As far as this Neo Buddhism is concerned, it has emerged as a maverick phenomena and is having a psychological solace for all those individuals who are struggling establish their socio-political rights. It is basically to establish a more egalitarian society, egalitarian society by ensuring socio-political rights of the excluded ones. Now, there is one thing in particular that we have to realize. And what is that thing? It is more about having a socio-political interest group in the neo-Buddhist school of thought, having a socio-political interest group. What is the word? Interest group, which will help them survive and thrive through the political and social evolution of the state as well. And that is where the role of Buddhism, the Neo Buddhism, is going to be enlarged, and we will have to consider the issues and challenges, or rather, we will have to consider the role and responsibility of this new school of thought. We should rather embrace it and utilize it to establish certain socio-political schools and certain socio-political initiatives that the government wants to bring for all the individuals in the society. Now, this new Buddhist school of thought has came about to be a crucial in building a challenge to the dominant narrative of Hindutva as is perceived. It is creative. I would recommend, guys, listen very carefully. I would really recommend that you should not end up writing in a very controversial manner. It does not really help your cause when it comes to scoring good marks. Make sure that you simmer everything down and to give due reasons for all the things that you're trying to mention. Because your mains answers are scrutinized at the topmost level, they are looked at by various individuals who have experience. Most of the times, they have experience as in bureaucracy and they are seasoned bureaucrats. So, I would recommend avoiding anything which would seem to be very controversial. But if you want to mention any kind of criticism, then you should mention it with due and solid reason, right? Now, this creative application that Neo Buddhist school brings to the table, the ideology that has been structured to make sure that the Dalit movement as it becomes as strong as an autonomous political force, particularly in the areas of Maharashtra state, is something that this school of thought has done quite well. Diksha Bhumi in Nagpur is the place where Ambedkar has embraced Buddhism. It has emerged as a monumental heritage site, and that is why every year millions of people they visit this area. Now, in this region close to Nagpur, Buddhism was resurrected not only as a part of India's culture, but also as a tool to escape the caste hierarchical cultural hegemony and also the social hostility that many individuals have been facing. Urban Buddhists, these have been called, they are marked by educational achievements, they have offered vital leadership to Dalit politics. Conversion to Buddhism has also helped Dalits to find robust meaning about their cultural past. This is how you will have to understand the way things are being run for the perspective of Neo Buddhist school of thought, right? Just give me a second, guys. Let me just confirm if my chat section is working. Okay. Now, as far as the role and responsibility of the school of thought of Buddhism is concerned, the reinvention that they have done with respect to the Buddhist cultural symbols, the rituals, it basically creates a difference with the ancient schools of thought, which is Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, Hinayana, for example. And also, it gives us a strong, robust socio-political culture, which allows many of the people who are followers of the school of thought certain level of socio-political upliftment. That is why the responsibility and rather the role of the school of thought is ever encompassing, and that is why we should not just limit this topic of socio-political upliftment through the neo-Buddhism to just the art and culture topic. Try interrelating it with the socio-political reforms. Try linking it with maybe GS2, syllabus of GS2. Try interlinking it with the ethical aspects and also the role and responsibility of a changed perspective towards Buddhism as well. All right? Chaliye. Further, as far as the school of thought is concerned, it's not a very easy tide for them. There are certain struggles that they have to face because the cultural assertions that Buddhism otherwise faces or rather proposes and claims over public spaces, it has become a symbol of their rejection against the cultural hegemony and its social tentacles. The way they have been asserting their cultural assertions, the way they have disregarded the religious tenets of Buddhism and have created a new school of thought that is not really creating a basically it's not really creating more of harmony but is just more reactionary towards the cultural hegemony and social tentacles. Buddhist population in India is one of the smallest minorities in India. Its ideological challenge against the social order has not been taken seriously, and even within the Dalit community, conversion to Buddhism is not perceived as a suitable path to achieve social emancipation. Not everybody is following this path, not everybody within the folds of Dalit communities and other individuals, they're not following this path. A large majority of Indian Buddhists they reside in Maharashtra, but it is mainly the Mahar caste and Matang and Maratha castes which have identified themselves as neo-Buddhists. Other socially marginalized groups they are still defined by the Hindu caste nomenclatures and traditional occupations are being still followed, and that is why I say that many individuals have not yet incorporated themselves into or rather indoctrinated themselves into the folds of neo-Buddhism. Dalit socio-political movements in the state of UP, Bihar, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka also have not picked up on this conversion regime. Even in the states where scheduled caste population is relatively quite high, for example, in Punjab, West Bengal, Odisha, for example, people have shown restraint to adopt Buddhism, and that poses a challenge to their social location because it is more limited towards Maharashtra or south of India particularly. India's neighboring Buddhist countries have also not identified this new school of thought, and that is also a concern because their own pagodas, their own temples in Bodh Gaya, that we have several Buddhist countries, their own pagodas, their own temples they are more concerned with adding new sites in India's Buddhist circuit rather than adding a new school of thought, which is denying the existence of the already existing schools of thought, or rather, not following what the existing schools of thought have been following as a basic universal core set of principles that Buddhism has to follow. Certain individuals and Buddhist associations from Japan, Thailand, and even United Kingdom have established some close links with the new Buddhists, but it is only a small support. So the rest of the world of Buddhist community is not supporting this school of thought. Current opposition lacks effective cultural strategies for asserting this right wing challenge that they are being faced with. Instead, it is still using the same old formal electoral strategies like electioneering. Electioneering is something when you read about interest groups, you read about electioneering. What is electioneering? Where you want that somebody from your own folds, from your own interest group, is sitting or is representing your interests in the parliament or in the state legislature, so that they can help you achieve your interests in a, or satisfaction of your interests in a much simpler and easier manner, right? Yeah. But there have been certain government actions in the recent times. These recent government actions have been presented as, the government has presented itself as the promoter of Buddhist cultural heritage, and it has been considered as India's national heritage because it comes from India's ancient philosophies. In fact, this has helped us have greater diplomatic relations with the neighboring countries like China, like Nepal, Myanmar, and Japan as well. We have a shared Buddhist heritage with all these countries, and that is why we are using the Buddhist circuit to establish stronger ties. In fact, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's Diksha Bhumi was visited by the Honorable Prime Minister in 2017, paid rich tributes to Ambedkar Sahab and announced multiple developmental projects in the region. He also inaugurated Kushinagar International Airport to promote tourism towards Buddhist circuit. And this is something that is actually being picked up by various countries around India. Neighboring countries like Myanmar, various countries like China and Nepal, and even Japan for that matter, not a neighboring country, but still has picked up on these initiatives rather the Neo-Buddhist school of thought. So Neo-Buddhist school of thought has a very limited support from the rest of the world. Now, having said that, it is still the government's efforts to propose, to enhance and to build more infrastructure for the proposed Buddhist circuit. Apart from that, what we can do is we can revisit the ideals of this neo-Buddhist school of thought, this movement, so that it can help us build a fierce and a strong ideological challenge to any right wing or any strong right wing hegemonic culture which might undermine the socio-political rights of the downtrodden or the so-called Dalits. Now, based on those ideals, what we need to understand is that the new Buddhist movement has always been it has always been based on the socio-political upliftment of certain sections of society. It is not really a religious movement, it is more of a socio-political movement. Why do I say so? It is because of the fact that it's not that the Buddhism as a school of thought was accepted and rather followed because of the optimism that Buddhism proposes. It is more about the socio-political challenges in the fold of the society that people have been wanting to shed and move towards a better and a more egalitarian society. And that is why the conversions and the acceptance of neo-Buddhist school of thought as a faith has been happening in the past, in the present, to establish certain socio-political rights. And those socio-political rights, that is why I say, are the foundation of the neo-Buddhist school of thought. And that is why it is right here, it is right now, is the agenda. I am, Kaloji, I am live. I am live. I am live. Now, just a second. Let so that I can see the chat simultaneously. नहीं तो just one. Yeah. So based on this idea, You can get a question on the Neo Buddhist school because it is a overlapping subject and an overlapping topic, and because GS1 mentions in its syllabus, of course, it mentions art and culture, but it also mentions about the society, the sociological aspects of Indian society, the sociological aspects and topics that are relevant for Indian society. This portion gets overlapped with this topic. And that is why there are higher chances of getting a question from here as well. All right? Chili. Now, based on that, let's write down a question. What if a question was to come from this topic? Let's write down a question, a prospective one, and you can practice writing answer to this question. I'm going to do this as a practice from now on to make sure to give you a certain question, set of questions that you can practice while you are pursuing your dream to write down mains examination. है ना? चलो. I'm giving you a question right here. So a question might come on the grounds that you can critically. I'm trying to keep it simple so that it it really helps you in getting more and more say bits, and also making sure that every aspect of the topic is also covered within the question. Critically analyze the role of New Buddhist school in establishing an egalitarian socio-political system for the rather excluded word नहीं use करेंगे. Let's use the word for the non-included section society. Mark maybe 200 words, है ना? Make sure to write down this answer. Answer को लिखेगा अपने तरफ से, and you can also one more thing, guys. One more very important thing. I am sharing the link of the Telegram channel that we have. The link of the Telegram channel that we have for all you guys, so that you can have better access to all the information, all the classes that we are bringing from Sriram IAS, that we are bringing for you guys. And make sure that you follow that page on Telegram so that you have better access to all the information, all the initiatives that we are bringing. उस सब चीज की इंफॉर्मेशन, सारी चीजों का ब्यौरा, and of course, you know, downloadable material and current affairs analysis, study material, a lot of things that are being offered on Unacademy platform by Sriram Zayas, and many other things, they are available on this Telegram channel. I'm sharing the link of the Telegram channel in the chat section. Make sure that you copy that link and be a part of that Telegram channel as well. All right. Chaliye. Now, let's continue further. I've shared a link. Make sure that you have saved that link. इसको class के बाद follow कीजिएगा and be a part of the Telegram channel. Now let's continue. Let's move towards another topic which is again related to art and culture. Let me send the link again. I don't. think I can see the link. Could you just give me a second? I'm sharing the link again. Yep. I've shared the link. Make sure that you are a part of that link. Okay. Yeah. Now, many a times I've seen this. It is a regular phenomena when you talk about mains examination, when you talk about GS1. Every single year, there have been questions from this portion of history, and that is generally, if you would notice, even in 2015 and 2013, way back when the system and when the practice of writing mains has changed a little, we have till now seen a number of questions from such topics. Now I am going to discuss the coinage system of ancient times, particularly from Kushana period, and where we would realize, of course, not just Kushana period, we would also realize how different coinage systems in India have worked during that period. Uh, the contemporary field related, coinage related entire evolution of coins in India, we will be discussing that. Chaliye. Now let's begin our journey. And of course, I will end this particular topic, by giving you another question. Note that question down so that you have better access to the information. जब तक आप किसी क्वेश्चन का आंसर with respect to that topic नहीं लिखते हैं, it becomes very difficult to retain that topic. But एक बार आपने आंसर लिख दिया, तो you now know how to perceive that topic. It is all about perception, guys. It's all about how you perceive different things when it comes to mains. In mains examination, it is more about perception. Remember that. Now, as far as coinage is concerned, very recently images of coins with gods and goddesses dating back to Kushana period had been found, and that is why this was last year end ke aspas, after the previous mains examination. So this happened last year, and because of that, it became to news, and certainly because of that, it is going to be important. Now, as far as the Kushan Empire is concerned, this empire was one of the five branches of UAZ Confederation, which is an Indo-European nomadic people. This UAZ Confederation, this name is quite important. I would recommend that you remember this and use this in your answers as well, because it will help you guys out. Okay. Now, further, UAZ people, they have ruled over most of the North Indian subcontinent, Afghanistan, parts of Central Asia during the first 3 centuries of this world. First 3 centuries. AD, of course, not BC. Is it AD or is it BC? You remember what and what time period did Kushanas come from? Do you remember the regions? I hope you have read history. I hope you've read ancient history, of course, particularly at this particular point of time. If you have, then you should know this. Now, in India, and give me the answers in the chat section or in the comment section if you are watching it in the recorded format. Now, in India, the UAZ nomads, they later transformed themselves into the ruling elite, and larger parts of Afghanistan, the Indus Valley, North Indian plains, they all occupied these territories. And as far as Kushanas are concerned, the greatest king of them all was Kanishka, of course. Now, Kanishka ruled over northern part of the subcontinent, Afghanistan, and possibly even certain parts of Central Asia for certain portions of the time. And north of Kashmir region was also occupied. He, however, was chiefly remembered as a great patron of Buddhism. It was during his reign that in ancient times, he pushed for greater influence of Buddhism in his kingdom. Even though he was the greatest of the kings, when it comes to the greatness of a king, it is not just about the way he treats his subjects, it is also about the way he has expanded his own kingdom. Great Eurasian power that India became was during his reign. It was during his reign that the kingdom was acknowledged as one of the four great Eurasian powers of that time, including China, Rome, and Parthia. Parthians also had come to India, but we will not be discussing that. It is not the domain of this particular topic. Then the new system of calendars that they had started, the system of dating that Kanishka had initiated, was the Saka era, called as Saka era, sometimes Shaka era or Shakya era, comes from the word Shakya. In fact, if you have read or you watched Mahabharata or Ramayana or these epic serials, or you've watched and have knowledge about these epics and Indian system of mythology or Indian ancient systems, then you certainly would know a term called Shakya Muni. If you know who this person was, Shakya Muni, who was called Shakya Muni, then you should write it down in the comment section. कमेंट्स में मुझे बताइएगा शाक्य मुनि किन्हें कहा जाता था. Now, Saka era or Shakya era or Shaka era, basically year of 78 AD, that marks the beginning of this calendar, which actually is the basis of calendars in Indian ancient systems. इसी के बेसिस पर आपके इंडियन, चाहे वो हिंदू कैलेंडर्स हैं, चाहे वो कोई भी कैलेंडर्स जो कि आप फॉलो करते हैं, इट इज बेस्ड ऑन दैट. नाउ it also, Kushanas, they also celebrated grandeur of administrative systems. And that administrative system that they started is known as satrapi system or kshatrapa system of Indian administration. When you read public administration, in fact, we have been offering courses on public administration on Unacademy platform as well. I'm taking your Unacademy's on Unacademy. I'm taking your public administration, particularly from Sriram IAS. So based on that, I'm telling you this, that this system is to be well studied when it comes to the Indian administrative system or the evolution of the Indian administrative system. Ancient times में ये system आपका Kautilya's Arthashastra, these are to be studied quite in detail and to be understood in the manners that they have been running the country in the ancient times. Further, Kushanas had established trade relations with Rome. They had benefited from the Silk Road trade route that economically had helped this region, Indian region, in a much greater sense. Now, let's understand the schools of art that using Buddhist scriptures and using Buddhism as an inspiration, Kushanas had built. Now, they had a legacy, but that legacy, unfortunately, is left with very little evidence today. They established and were instrumental in spreading Buddhism in Central Asia, China, and also developing Mahayana Buddhism. Gandhara and Mathura schools of art have been influenced by Kushana efforts and initiatives. Now, let's talk about their coins. Ram Kumar ji, welcome to the class. Let's talk about the coinage of Kushanas. I have brought for you guys very simplistic way, in a very simplistic way, to cover these topics. Listen very carefully, guys. One thing is the perspective around the topic. The other thing is the fact. Once you have both these things, then you can write good answers for your mains. Now, what I'm going to do is first focus on the facts and then go towards the perspective, so that the perspective is based on facts. For you guys, it's easier to remember as well. Now, Kushanas, particularly Cadaphysis. Cadaphysis, it was basically Vima Cadaphysis who introduced the first gold coins in India. First ones were introduced. Now, if it is the first one, of course, the superlatory systems, जो कि first है, best है, greatest है, इन सब चीजों को आपको हमेशा दिमाग में रखना चाहिए, याद रखना चाहिए, because it works as a reference point for you guys to learn all the other things around it. When it came to be the Cadaphysis, in fact, had also basically double dinar, which is considered as the first gold coin of the Indian subcontinent. which was introduced by Cadaphysus, and it was not Kanishka. Kanishka, in fact, minted coinage in two metals. One gold, the other one was copper. Gold was minted in two denominations, one dinar, which is the stater, or quarter dinar, which is one fourth the dinar, based on that. Now, undoubtedly, Kushana coins were more influential. They influenced by their predecessors, Indo-Greeks, who were overthrown by Kushanas as well. And I've brought certain images as well. ये थोड़ा ऊपर नीचे हो जाती है ना जब प्रेजेंटेशन सेव करते हैं तो उस वजह से है. आगे चल के images भी हैं. Now, the thing is that when you talk about Kushana coins, Cadaphysus initiatives were the foundation. Uske baad Kanishka picked up on that initiative and started utilizing gods and goddesses and various other individual mentionings on the coins. Further, two metals were used by Kanishka and not by Cadaphysus. Cadaphysus used only gold. The first gold coin was issued by him. Then Kanishka started using and minting coins in two metals, gold and copper. Further, the denominations are known. Dinar, which is the stater, which is basically the predominant currency denomination. And further, you had the quarter dinar, the one-fourth one. Now, further, Kushana coins were influenced by its predecessors, Indo-Greeks, who were basically overthrown by Kushanas as well. So there are images of gods and goddesses for that reason. Now, just a second, guys. Now, images on Kushana coins have relevance because it is currency is always a statement of the government of that time. Currency is always that. So basically, when you have images, if you talk about the Indian rupee system and the rupee denominations that we have now in today's times, if you look at it, you would realize that there are a multiple set of things in the entire printed note as well as the coins, which will resemble the significance of certain monuments, certain individuals, and mark certain anniversaries, which will ensure that when these notes and when these coins will survive in the future, it will be a legacy. It is all about legacy when it comes to the basic currency. But today, the legacy part of currency is not really worried about. है ना? Today, we are more worried about the relevance of that currency कि कहीं 2000 का नोट बंद हो गया, आगे 500 का नोट बंद हो जाएगा तो हम क्या करेंगे? चलो. Now, gods have been found on the coins. Coins exhibit figures of Greek gods, Roman, Iranian, Hindu, and Buddhist deities. So, all these individuals, it's not just Hindu and Buddhists, it is also Iranian, Roman, and Greek deities that you find shapes and figures on the coins. Also, according to historians, Kushanas were the first to use the images of goddess Lakshmi on their coins, the first ones, according to historians. And also, along with Ardocho, which is basically the Iranian goddess of wealth. That means the cultural confluence that came along with the minting of these coins is marvelous. Various kings, they found their faces imprinted or embossed or minted on these coins. Kushana coins tell a great deal about the images of the kings as they wish to be seen by their subjects. The grandeur of these kings was basically minted in these coins. Kushanas used these minted figures in gold, copper coins, particularly of Vima cadphises, and they are amazingly individualistic. It is known कि हाँ ये full bearded man है, बड़ा नाक है, अच्छे से fierce looking warrior chieftain, perhaps deformed skull as well. Some wearing high helmet, tunic, overcoat, felt boots. Felt is basically a type of material that is used to make boots or shoes. Now it is not too often utilized because of various animal rights and initiatives associated with that. But yes, further, after Kushanas, do we really have others who have picked up on the coinage that they had, the initiative that they had taken? Yes, there have been many individuals. Let's talk about coins in India in general. Now, as far as the beginning portion of the evolution of coinage in India is concerned, anywhere around 1000 BC or to 6th century BC, that is the zone where coinage system actually started to shape itself in this subcontinent, and it consisted mainly of copper and silver coins. Why? Because the availability of these metals was easier, and the coins of this period are basically karshapanas or pana. So from there the word pana comes into play further. If you talk about further down south, there are Satvahana rulers. Satvahana rulers who came into power, they are contentious and are variously put together between 270 BC and 30 BC, somewhere around that. If you know, then you know what that BC works in opposite direction. Acha. As far as the coins are concerned, the coins were predominantly made up of copper and lead. So that copper and lead was used. If you notice, these are copper and lead coins. However, silver issues are also known. पता है कि कई जगहों पर आपको silver coins भी मिलते थे. These coins are carried with motifs of fauna, elephants. For example, if you notice here, you have a horse, then lions, bulls, horses. All of this is juxtaposed against motifs from nature like hills, trees, etc. If you notice, there are things drawn here rather. You notice some things are mentioned here as well, for example. So it is not just the animal which is basically portrayed, or not just the image that is portrayed. With the image, you have certain background as well. So there is attention to details. Silver coins were carried with portraits and bilingual legends, which were inspired by Kshatrapa system of basically Kushanas. Acha. So Kushanas had influence on the coinage system in India. In fact, Kushanas had influenced Satvahanas as well in their coinage. So remember this. Whenever you are writing your mains answer with respect to Kushana period coinage, you should remember that Kushanas also influenced Satvanas. When you will be specific, then they would know that you are right. Now, then we come to the Western Kshatrapa system. The Western Kshatrapa system, if you notice, the head, the nose, the bulge in the cheeks, and a lot of different nuances, if you notice in these coins, if you look very closely. See, when it comes to art and culture, particularly this topic, to score good marks, you know what you have to do? Not just read books, not just be good at remembering a lot of things. No, that's like the very basic aspect of being a UPSC aspirant. You should be able to imagine things. Art and culture will only help you in scoring good marks when you are able to imagine things in the manner that they are. For example, when you talk about various religions, various individual schools of thought like Neo Buddhism school of thought that we have discussed in the initial part of the lecture, every single domain you will have to realize that it has to be covered in such a manner. Now, Western Kshatrapa system, which was basically the legends on the coins that you find, is Greek and Brahmi. Roshti script is also found. For example, this Western Kshatrapa coins, they are reckoned to be the earliest coins bearing dates. This is the first set of coins which are known to have mentioned dates. Very important. The common copper coin has bull and hill, the elephant and hill system, basic system जो है वो ऐसा चलता है. Further, if you talk about the Chera coinage, so during the 11th and 13th centuries, this is what the Chera coins used to look like. These are the remains of the Chera coins. थोड़ा सा मिट गया है, if you notice. There are images of elephants, there are images of humans, and also of some, you know, celestial object, maybe the sun. For example, this is the elephant. I'm trying to give you a diagram here. I hope you can notice. है ना? So this is how things have been when it comes to Cheras. For Cholas, Cholas have focused more on deities. They have focused more on coinage पे, focused more on religious artifact, religious symbols, and of course deities also, gods and goddesses. उनका ज़्यादा focus उन पे रहा है. They have a long tradition of coinage with images of gods and goddesses. Further, various other dynasties with gods on their coins in India. First and foremost, and the most relevant names if you come across, and in fact, UPSC has already asked a question in their mains examination. It's on the Gupta coinage, the most relevant part. Now, Gupta Empire produced large number of gold coins. Gold बहुत था इनके पास, and they had splendid coinage systems with many types, infinite varieties, number of varieties, a lot of inscriptions, particularly in Sanskrit language, and they are the finest examples of coinage that we possess in India. Guys, trust me. And generally, circular coins, if you notice, there is a difference. For example, tolas ko chhod dijiye. If you notice that many coins which have in the later period of coinage in the ancient India, if you have a coin which has a deity or god and goddesses embossed or minted on the coin, then certainly the coin would preferably be circular in size or in shape rather. Further, if you notice that when you talk about the earlier systems, for example, the Chera system, for example, if you talk about the older systems like these, the ones that have survived, they are not really in a circular fashion. It is only in the Gupta period that attention to detail came into being. Now, further moving towards the Vijayanagara kingdom, I'm only focusing on the coinage of the entire ancient India. Entire ancient India, remember this. Vijayanagara kingdom, it used coinage with Hindu idols. Harihara the second, from 1377 till 1404, he introduced coins that had Brahma Saraswati, Vishnu Lakshmi, Shiva Parvati, the duals of Hinduism. And Vijayanagara coins, they continued in circulation even after the kingdom had snuffed out in 1565. And it commanded a premium when French traveler Tavernier visited the region. तो these coins अगर आपको मिल जाए, आप भी संभाल के रख लेना, कभी भी काम आ जाए, है ना? चलिए. Now, the British East India Company further started issuing coins, minting coins. Now, the minted coins were labeled as the Three Swami Pagoda. Now, if you look at the name of this coin, the Three Swami Pagoda, it does not really seem like something that Britishers would create or would mint. है ना? Based on that, I would recommend that you should remember this, look more about it, and look at the images. This is your homework. Look at the images of this Three Swami Pagoda minted coin, which depicts Lord Balaji flanked with Sri Devi and Bhudevi on either side. Not all the coins they were minted freshly. Some were repurposed from the past, from various kingdoms that they had acquired, and some were issued in continuity as well, just to make sure कि जो इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम फॉलो हो रहा है आपकी सोसाइटी के अंदर वो कॉन्टिन्यूस फैशन में कंटिन्यूड रहे. राइट नाउ, अदर coinage systems, for example, you had the ancient Indian system that was able to establish strong Middle East, European, Greece and Rome, basically, as well as China. You could establish stronger trade links based on these coins. Trade was carried out over land, partly along with, of course, some silk routes and certain maritime trade routes as well. And that is where the references come from. So these coins basically have allowed us to realize that in south of India, particularly, I do not call it South India. I don't know why many people call it South India. It is more about south of India. When you say South India, I think it is in denigration and derogation to the fact that there are five beautiful states with five, not only five, rather more than five, but five predominantly or majorly distinctive cultures and traditions. Distinctively cultures and traditions based on the languages, based on the style of life that these different states have. I've visited multiple states, so I know the difference in culture and the traditions and the ways that these people that are living with us, they have a very beautiful culture. So I would recommend, as a person who is preparing for UPSC, you should start using the phrase South of India rather than South India, because South India predominantly basically whitewashes the entire diversity that exists in South of India. And मेरे से भी कभी गलती से निकल जाता है because of the habit that we have gotten North India, South India. This is basically, if you change small portions in your speech, you start changing the way you are to be perceived as a person as well. Trust me, if you start doing this, you will start shaping your personality for interviews as well. Just these small things, if you start changing in your lifestyle, in your speech as well. Also, now the south of India, you would see thriving maritime trade, Roman coins even circulated in the original form in India itself. And they were slashed at times as a gesture of disclaiming the intrusion of foreign sovereignty, but still they have been found. I would not call it southern India. हाँ, southern India बोल सकते हैं. Southern India is also, see, it's more about inclusivity. It's more about respecting the cultural traditions of the entire set of regions of this country. If southern India suits your palate, because it's more about how you are able to easily speak about things and yet be acknowledging the fact that there is cultural diversity. Gaurav, howsoever you seem okay about it, I would just, I'm just focused on the perception that we have, that perception that everybody south of Vindhyas or everybody south of Madhya Pradesh is South India. That perception जहां पर हम white wash कर रहे हैं, उस चीज को avoid करना है. Now it can be through southern India, it can be through south of India. It's not just about the play of words, it's also about the perception. And whenever you are discussing, you will have to, one will have to consider this, even if you are from south of India or you are a part of the southern Indian communities, then I would recommend that you should also consider that not everybody north of India, coming from north of India, has the same culture or has the same tradition. Everybody that you see coming from north of India does not speak Hindi. They don't really speak Hindi. They have different languages, just like south of India has different languages. So what we need to do is, as individuals, because like charity begins at home, change begins from one individual. It is one individual who has to consider all this. Uh, I don't want to go into these details, but I hope you've gotten the idea what I'm trying to project here. Now, always a pleasure, Gaurav. Now, let's move towards environment. थोड़ा सा gears change करते हैं. Let's talk about carbon pricing mechanism. This is going to be a really interesting topic, and I've made sure that I've brought in all the details, and I've made sure that I would make it a point that I will talk about its linkages with rest of the topics, so that it is a component of GS3. You will find a question in GS3. अच्छा, one thing, एक चीज रह गई ना, आपने बताया नहीं. I keep giving you questions. This is a practice now. Question for means, for your practice. Note it down, huh, please. Let me curate one right away. One question can be based on the fact that discuss the significance of coinage during Kushana's Kushana period in influencing the not the in influencing its evolution in India? This can be one question. Another type of question can be based on, I'm giving you another question जहां पर जगह मिल रही है भाई. This is a PDF that I'm using, so I cannot add add slides. This is not the Unacademy platform where you can easily add slides. And just a second. Hey, what is this beautiful name written? Do you see this? Yep. Now, another set of question can be relating to a generic one. This is relating to Kushanas because we have covered different types of coinage systems. तो उसमें थोड़ा सा आप generic question भी देख सकते हैं. Critically, यहाँ पर critically नहीं आ सकता है because it is very difficult to be critically analyzing. Let's keep it simple. Analyze the role of coins in shaping the socio-political discourse, shaping the socio-political discourse in ancient India. Yep. इस तरीके का क्वेश्चन अभी तक पूछा नहीं गया है. There have been no questions. Now you can write down, of course, 200 words on this. Maybe slip of hand, 100 words here, and of course 200 words here. I would give you questions with the word limit of 200 words only, ताकि आप उसको 150 में भी convert कर सकें, 250 में भी convert कर सकें. So this is the second question. The first question is, discuss the significance of coinage during Kushana period in influencing its evolution in India. Number one. Second question, analyze the role of coins in shaping the socio-political discourse in ancient India. तो ये दो questions इस style के बन सकते हैं from this topic. Moving further, let's talk about carbon pricing mechanisms. Now, if you like the way we are pursuing, make sure to mention that after the class. Comment section में मुझे बताना भी कि सर ये वाला aspect मुझे सही लगा. With respect to the perspectives approach, with respect to how you can write down answers as well. If you want me to continue this effort, because this is an initiative that we are making sure that आपकी preparation for mains examination strong हो जाए. Many a times we find you know लिमिटेड गुड क्वेश्चंस आपको ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे जो क्वेश्चंस मिलते हैं बहुत ही कम जगहों पर अच्छे, और जो यूपीएससी स्टाइल के क्वेश्चंस है ना बहुत लिमिटेड मिलते हैं. मोर ऑफ देम आर जेनेरिक, दे आर मोर ऑफ एनसीईआरटी स्टाइल. सो आई एम मेकिंग श्योर दैट सच क्वेश्चंस आपको सामने बनाऊंगा, आपके सामने आपको शक्ल दिख जाएगी. आई एम नॉट रीडिंग इट फ्रॉम एनीवेयर एल्स, सो आई वुड मेक इट with the help of you guys as well, of course. So we would do this, we will continue this effort if you keep supporting us, है ना? Particularly these, if you keep watching these initiatives and these lectures. So I would keep doing this. So supporting us के अंदर it is more about निज कृपा. The concept of निज कृपा is basically where you are helping your own self with by watching these good sessions and everything. चलो. Now, carbon pricing mechanism, the recent 2021 Conference of Parties, the COP26, had propelled all the nations to basically put up their targets. In fact, if you would notice, India had not just achieved certain targets, but it had also overpowered and overpassed its own targets as well. We are increasing and pushing for greater limits, and we are trying our level best. In fact, if you would notice, there is one index called planetary pressures adjusted. It was not really appreciated by the West. Planetary pressures adjusted. How many of you guys have heard of it? Let me know in the chat section. Planetary pressures adjusted human development index. So it is basically, in short, PHDI. So planetary pressures adjusted human development index puts India in a much better spot because of the initiatives and efforts that we have been taking with respect to our clean energy, green energy. If you know about it, then tell me about it. Now, As far as the carbon pricing mechanism is concerned, we will be coming to that point, but let's understand what is happening here. Many individual nations, they have updated the nationally determined contributions to reduce the global greenhouse gas emissions that they were producing, and they have announced pledges for 2030. The agenda 2030 basically is also in line and in sync with this 2030 plans, but it still remains insufficient and it is poorly aligned with the targets of the Paris Climate Agreement. Particularly why? Because many countries have opted out of the Paris Climate Agreement. If you know, you know. What country is it? Tell me in the comment section. Now, actual reduction is estimated to be 7.5%, while the target is requiring 30%. 30% reduction hai, tab jakar you will be able to limit global warming to 2 degrees Celsius, and 55% if you want to bring it down to 1.5 degrees Celsius as compared to those post-industrial revolution levels. Now, challenges as far as mitigation of climate change is concerned, one of the major challenges is that climate change is a product of market failure as well as policy failure. Why? Because you are not able to replace fossil fuels, and also you are not able to remove fossil fuel subsidies and distortionary tax regime, which basically helps and supplements using of fossil fuels. So the policy in various countries, I would give you one example that you can use in your mains answer. In a very beautiful city that I belong from, which is Chandigarh. In that city, they are stopping registration of two-wheelers which are fossil fuel based. So all the two-wheelers I'm talking about, motorcycles and bikes and Activas and scooties and everything, they will be predominantly or rather only be registered if they are based on electric platforms. This is a very good initiative given that you're using two-wheelers for city driving conditions, and the purpose of the two-wheeler is not just to showcase your economic might and everything. तो वो सारी चीजें नहीं है, तो इस वजह से I think that this is a very good initiative, stopping the registration of fossil fuel based two-wheelers. But there are certain challenges there. There are certain challenges. What would happen to all those individuals who have purchased only recently? They have purchased their two-wheelers, they have gotten themselves registered. Now, if they are not able to drive their two-wheelers for more than 10 years or more than that, for example, because you have 10 years or 15 years of registration of any vehicle, what would happen to those vehicles? What would happen to the owners of these vehicles if any individual was not capable enough, he or she, they took a loan of around 70,000 rupees, 1 lakh rupees to purchase a motorcycle or a bike of their choice, of their liking, and if they cannot thrive that motorcycle or that scooty or that Activa, I just remembered a joke but I would not crack that joke. वो बिना ब्रेक्स के पैरों से रोकने वाला जो that new system of braking that has been evolving over the past. I won't be talking about it. But what would happen to these owners? That is a major concern. Also, what is a major concern is what would happen to these companies? TVS, Honda, you have Bajaj, you have many other companies that are working in this line. And how would you manage? Even I think Mahindra also offers two-wheelers, if I'm not wrong. I think it does. There is one or two models of Mahindra as well. I don't know. Um, now, what would happen to these individuals or these companies? There will be huge loss to the exchequer through the loss of jobs, through the loss of revenues, and many other things. So, before stopping the registration, this is the last mile change that you are doing. This is the last mile change. Now, it seems like a very good initiative. If you look at it, it's a very good initiative. एक आईएएस ऑफिसर ने, एक आईपीएस ऑफिसर ने, या किसी इंडिविजुअल ने who is sitting at the helm of affairs, he thought that I should do something good about the environment. Fine, a very good initiative. But don't you think that it should have happened from upwards? It should not be a bottom up approach, because the bottom up approach is going to hamper the liberties of the citizens. So that change is something that we have to bring about. Now, further, What if the government was the one to change this perspective? That would have been much better. If the government had pushed for electric vehicles, particularly in the two-wheeler segment, that would have been much better, because now the jobs would have been basically rechristened into the format of electric vehicles, and you would have more and more jobs in that segment as well. So people would have started investing in that area, in that domain. But abhi investments are limited, and you have stopped registration. Now, this is proposed to happen in the next month or so, or maybe this month midway, somewhere around that. But that impact on the economy is not just at the end of the industry, but also at the end of the consumer. So we will have to consider that. And because of this, there is a problem with respect to the policy that we are focusing on. Not just India. It's not just India, guys. It's about the rest of the world as well. It's not just India that has a two-wheeler, industry. It's not just India that runs on cars, on fossil fuels, and various other greenhouse gas emitting industries. It's more about the way that we have been treating climate change. It is more about adaptation and mitigation, but it is less about changing perspectives or changing the way that we are to perceive the future. We are not having a strong industria academia linkage. Number one thing. Because if we did, and we started applying all the research work in the industry, it would not just save money, but it would also change the course of utilization of these greenhouse gas emitting fossil fuels as well. I'll give you an example of my own research. It's just a very small, brief example where I had created carbon nanoparticles from coconut husk. नारियल का पके हुए नारियल का brown छिलका, that coconut husk that you basically remove to get to the inner part of the coconut. I used that to create carbon nanotubes. How many of you guys know about CNTs, carbon nanotubes? Let me know in the chat section. If you don't, then I can explain as well. Now, when I did that, I made it a point how much money you would think it required for me to create these multi-walled, single-walled carbon nanotubes, which otherwise takes lakhs and lakhs of rupees or sometimes even crores. The machine themselves, which are used to test whether it has carbon nanotube or not, is costing around 4 crores or 5 crores or something like that. So I did it with only around 200 rupees or 300 rupees a month maximum. If you have a furnace, you can make it at your own home. All you have to do is follow certain procedures. Simple. Not much money is required. And the utility is in industries like your infrastructure industry. It helps you create more robust and stronger structures. It can also help you clean the water systems, drainage systems may zada mobility and less of slugginess to improve the nutrient uptake in wheat, for example. That was one thing that happened, which will create better utilization of nutrients from the soil and also increase the yield, particularly in wheat, which can also be, of course, it can also be extrapolated to various other crops. So this is how you should be able to. Now, if I had gotten, for example, I am not a part of the community now. I have passed that area, I've passed that zone. And many of my seniors and my colleagues, they are pursuing PhD in this field. I had pursued law after that. So I've moved away from that. I've moved towards policy analysis and everything. But still, I find this to be lacking. If you had academia, industria, discussion forums, and the ability to interlink various things, this problem of, or rather, this dual problem of policy and market failure, this twin challenge of policy and market failure would not have caused any problem. Not to that extent to which we are facing today. क्यों? क्योंकि आज आपकी fossil fuel subsidy, you have to provide subsidy because it is the day to day activities that you are running on. it is running on fossil fuels. Second thing, you have to tax it as well. Then the tax system is enhancing the prices of fossil fuels, which also makes them costlier. So basically, the way taxes are being applied and subsidies are being given, it is basically focused entirely on fossil fuels. It's not about replacement of fossil fuels. It's not about, having any other way of running systems on the basis of fossil fuels. So energy policy is another domain that needs to be rejigged or revamped. Niti Aayog has been working on those grounds, particularly when it has given the sustainability vision that it has for India in the India at 75 document and India 2050 document. It has mentioned a lot of things with respect to that, but it is still falling short of any robust policy alternatives that are available. It's not just about India, it's about a lot of other countries. Now, as far as the cost of emitting greenhouse gases are concerned, it's not reflected in the price of goods and services. So basically, what is the outcome or what is the basic, say, impact on the environment? That value addition in the input cost, or rather the primary cost of any fossil fuel, is not being incorporated. Poor incentives are given to the potential innovators, and investments are not happening in those areas. You have investments happening in the renewable energy sector, particularly in the solar energy sector. That is the only sector where you are putting in more efforts for multiple reasons. One reason being that if you create a very strong sector of solar energy in India, then you stop the hegemony of China, because now you are a strong market for semiconductors, number one. Also, because of demand increasing, you will also be able to manufacture or to be able to scale up various other initiatives in this country itself and project. Because of the growth that we are having, जो growth हमारी हो रही है, उसी growth के basis पर you can also seek international investments. So FDI can be sought in the renewable energy sector. So because of that reason, we are focused more and predominantly through the International Solar Alliance, through various other missions like the solar mission that we are having, national solar mission, and also the national action plan for climate change. Based on that, whatever initiatives, the host of initiatives that we are taking, it is predominantly focused on solar energy. That should, of course, not change, but that should also cover other aspects of climate change as well. Now we come to the process of carbon pricing. Arthur Pigou, basically, this individual in 1920 wrote a book, The Economics of Welfare. And from there, the Pigovian tax regime or the Pigovian tax system, this term, this phrase came into being. Now, a Pigovian tax on carbon has ensured that the cost of emitting greenhouse gases is reflected in the price of commodity or the service as well. So, this Pigovian tax is basically to remove the ill effects by economic sanctions, or rather economic taxation policy, using the tax system to remove the ill effects of greenhouse gases. This tax is being implemented. Now, it basically embodies the principle of laissez-faire, offering a strong market-friendly mechanism that will allow firms and consumers to have flexibility to choose between the costs of cutting emissions and the benefits accrued from continuing to emit. So basically, if you continue the carbon emissions, then you will have to pay more. Or if you start investing in reducing carbon emissions or cutting down carbon emissions, then you save on costs as well. So basically, this is to incentivize more efforts and initiatives in carbon reduction, carbon emission reduction. All right. Now, guys, if I am audible and visible, and also if you're liking this session, then why don't you just like this session as well? And if you are listening to what I'm saying and if you're understanding what I'm saying, then just give me a thumbs up and let me know in the chat section. I'm watching you guys. This is a live session. uh, Talo was asking if I'm live or not. I have given my answer. I think I've mentioned it in the chat section as well, that I am live. So make sure that you guys follow this through and just let me know in the chat section if I am audible and visible and everything is working fine at your end. Okay. चलिए, everything is wonderful till this point. Wonderful. Great. Now let's continue. Thank you, Gaurav. Uh, See, once the Pigovian tax system is incorporated, the policy of Pigovian taxation again, it enhances the cost, it adds the burden on the last mile individual, which is the consumer of that product, basically. And that is the problem with the system, where the system is more inclined towards enhancing the burden through cost policies. And it's not about, see, the burden will be there on the industry, but it will not be to the extent, because industry is of स्केल अप हो चुका होता है, तो इस वजह से इंडस्ट्री को बहुत ज्यादा फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. सबसे ज्यादा फर्क पड़ता है द लास्ट माइल इंडिविजुअल हु इज द एंड कंज्यूमर. उसे सबसे ज्यादा फर्क पड़ता है बिकॉज इट इज एट द इंडिविजुअल लेवल. Carbon pricing is considered as a cost effective measure to internalize these externalities with respect to carbon dioxide emissions and maximize emission reductions per unit dollar at the lowest possible cost. How can you approach carbon pricing or carbon tax pricing regimes? Let's understand these approaches. One of them is the abatement approach, stopping the use. How do you do that? It is basically the marginal cost of reducing each additional unit of emission, and and is basically contingent. The word contingent means it is conditional upon various factors, which include the low pace of carbon technological innovations, cost of compliance, ability of firms and consumers to substitute towards low carbon products from higher carbon ones. तो हायर कार्बन एमिशन प्रोडक्ट से लोअर कार्बन एमिशन प्रोडक्ट्स की तरफ ट्रांजिशन करना, ये सारी चीजें जो है अबेटमेंट अप्रोच के अंदर है. राइट नाउ many of the countries including India, in many of our initiatives we are following this approach, where we are adding marginal cost is being added to the already existing cost of the unit produced. And उसमें आप basically एक तरीके से लताड़ना है कह लीजिए, or is it basically a punitive measure that you are not moving towards low carbon alternatives. So it is more or less punitive to the extent that it is asking you to pay more because you are buying a product or you are creating a product which is high on carbon emission. So by increasing the cost based on marginal increase or marginal utility or marginal जो marginalism का जो basic फंडा है from economics, उसको utilize करके आप लोग इसको follow करते हैं, and that adds to the pricing of the product. Carbon pricing mechanisms are predicated on the basis of profit-making firms that will continue to cut emissions to point where marginal abatement cost will lower down than the social cost of carbon. So at one point of time, there will be a time where you will have more and more people investing. तो उस टाइम पर आपकी जो सोशल कॉस्ट है वो आपकी इस मार्जिनल कॉस्ट से ऊपर आ जाएगी. मार्जिनल कॉस्ट, द एडेड कॉस्ट will go down because the overall social cost of carbon reduction will go higher, and it will help you reduce the prices as well. So initially it will be higher. At this point of time it seems like quite high, and we don't know, but we are paying for the climate change mitigation and adaptation plans from by hook or by crook, by one way or the other. So we are right now paying a bigger chunk or a large chunk of our earnings towards climate change. But yes, this pricing, this cost will come down as soon as more and more people will start cutting emissions to the point that social cost of carbon is higher. जब हम हमारे इनिशिएटिव्स सोसाइटी की तरफ होंगे, जब हम ज्यादा फोकस करेंगे, द प्रोसेस और rather the concept of social cost of carbon is about that, where you have more impetus given to carbon emissions at a societal level, at a greater level, then certainly the marginal cost will seem a bit smaller. Further, you have the revenue approach. This is something that is picked up in many sectors. I will give you examples where tax rate is based on the revenue considerations of the regulatory authority, or by simply following some benchmark approach where the tax rate is linked with the rate of neighboring jurisdiction, your trading partners, your competitors. For example, when it comes to your renewable energy, particularly in India and with the rest of the world as well, we follow something which is similar to the revenue approach. The concept of net metering, for example, the processes that we are following when we are privatizing the distribution companies, so that we can maybe able to also reduce the transmission and distribution T&D losses while transmitting electricity, to be able to incorporate hybrid systems in electricity distribution, so that you have net metering concept, you have energy production at individual household level as well, incorporating solar energy into the grid. All these things, these are following this revenue approach, but only to a limited extent, thoda sa limited extent. But this is a very good practice where you can use revenue considerations. Maybe it is through the regulating authority, maybe it is through any authority which is policy framing purposes के लिए काम कर रही है, किसी भी चीज से रिलेटेड with respect to any sector, maybe renewable energy sector, maybe green economy sector, maybe agriculture sector, any sector. Now, when you are linking revenue, or the tax rate is linked with the rate that is in the neighboring jurisdiction of different countries, or with the trading partners and competitors, when you are trying to make it more competitive, make it look like it is more competitive and is more in line with the rest of the world as well, that is where revenue approach really works. Am I moving quite slowly? ठीक है ना? Let me observe myself as well. देखो, क्लास के बीच में कभी भी अगर आप लोगों को, मुझे नहीं आ रही है, आई फाइंड दीज टॉपिक्स टू बी क्वाइट इंटरेस्टिंग, आपको कभी भी ऐसे ऐसे हो, make sure that you tell me, sir, what is new about this topic, how to talk about it when it comes to मेंस आंसर राइटिंग. ऐसा ऐसा नहीं बोलना सर नींद आ रही है, नहीं तो ये वायरल वायरल हो जाती है सारी चीजें. बट ऐसा बोल दीजिएगा कि सर इसको मेंस में कैसे लिखना है, इसको आंसर में कैसे लिखना है, हाउ टू मेक इट मोर ल्यूक्रेटिव, लेट्स कॉल इट दैट, है ना. So if you tell me that, I would certainly switch gears, because I have always focused on more of interaction. So I make sure that this session is on the same lines. If you feel that, just पूछ लेना कि आंसर राइटिंग में क्या करना है, तो इंट्रोडक्शन बॉडी कंक्लूजन बताना शुरू कर दूंगा, थोड़ा सा चेंज कर देंगे, गियर्स चेंज कर लेंगे. Now, when it comes to revenue approach, I hope you have understood the basic phenomena where we are trying to make it more not user friendly. It is about policy level. रेवेन्यू अप्रोच पॉलिसी लेवल पर है, तो क्या हो रहा है, आप इसको कंपैरेटिवली बेटर बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, एंड कंपेरेबल टू द नेबरिंग jurisdiction, ट्रेडिंग पार्टनर्स और द competitors in that field. तो उनके हिसाब से, in lieu of that, you are trying to create the policy, right? Then there is another approach where you have the crediting system, crediting mechanism that we have been long listening to, Kyoto Protocol wala. Now, those industrialized NXB countries that can purchase carbon emission certifications or certified emission reductions, CER credits from developing countries, each credit equivalent to 1 ton of CO2 being emitted. है ना? That is how basically you can start trading as well. Then you have the CDM, the clean development mechanism. The CDM approach has also been asked in prelims examination a couple of years back. If I'm not wrong, this was 2029, something like that. Now, this CDM, या उससे पहले आया है, मुझे year याद नहीं है, but this has been asked in prelims examination. This is an international standardized emission offset instrument that can be used by various countries. Now, this is governed by UNFCCC's framework to facilitate trade on global scale. Clean development mechanism. Further, Internal carbon prices, for example, this approach of internal carbon prices is one of the most relevant and recent ones जहां पर आप internal aspects of one nation उसके ऊपर focus कर सकते हो to safeguard against future shocks, climate related risks and also government regulations जो कि prospective हो सकती हैं. This is being used voluntarily by companies and various organizations to create a basic buffer. This is basically done by shadow carbon pricing, where a hypothetical carbon cost is associated with each ton of carbon dioxide emission. कि आज हम ये कर रहे हैं, फ्यूचर में अगर कभी रेगुलेशन आ जाता है, if there is any future shock, economic shock or climate related risk, at that point of time, what will you do? How will you perceive that? So to add to that, you basically add the pricing in today's time. Again, the heat or the grunt is basically faced by the end consumer. Miss, देखो, there was this joke that I was listening to. This is just a joke that because I am a married individual, so I would crack a joke on that. That पत्नी काजू, बादाम, किशमिश हो सकती है, लेकिन पिस्ता आदमी ही है. So from that thought, the idea is that it is always going to be the last mile individual. Every single policy will have to be created or curated on the basis of the last mile individuals approach towards that aspect of policy and also the impact of that policy on that last mile आदमी जो कि पिसने वाला है ना. So based on that thought, now, what is the implicit carbon pricing? This is explicit system. The implicit system is not where you are directly not putting anything on, emission of carbon, but you set uniform performance standards for greenhouse gas emission abatement. Abatement is reduction, basically. उसको रोकना. Then you have command and control regulations where you employ specific technologies, performance-based standards to control carbon dioxide emission levels and also to protect environment's quality. So this is another way. This is again implicit. Then you have clean energy standards, the CES, again a market-based technology neutral approach where you are trying to encourage particularly the power sector to switch towards non or low emitting sources of energy. So this is clean energy standards to standardize the quality of services to be delivered in the power sector. Further, eliminating fossil fuel subsidies. This is again going to increase the pricing. Of course, when you are reducing the subsidies, it will increase the prices. And to achieve an optimal level of fuel prices, this will provide incentives for क्योंकि इससे पैसा जनरेट होगा and oil marketing companies can push for more energy efficient and fuel switching technologies in the future. So that might be the case. As far as explicit carbon pricing is concerned, this generally has to be mandated by the government, and it acts as a market signal for producers, consumers to move towards cleaner sources. तो ये साफ तौर पर शिफ्ट इन द स्टांस ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट होता है, अ क्लियर कट पिवटिंग ऑफ पॉलिसी होता है. व्हाट इज पिवट? Pivot is basically this point. If you are going like this, you pivot your direction because of this point in this manner, maybe, or in this manner, maybe. Okay. So pivoting is changing the course. So basically, the policy needs to pivot around the agenda of producing or utilizing cleaner sources of production, cleaner sources of energy as well. Now, these can be achieved, of course, by carbon taxes or the emission trading systems. Carbon tax, again, it can impose a fixed price on carbon emissions. That can happen. तो एक enhanced cost होगी, but that will be fixed. The objective, of course, is to increase the cost of fossil fuels. एक, to make it less lucrative. Second, to create incentives for investments towards fuel switching technologies and strategies, and which are more energy efficient. So the extra money that the companies get, that can be incentivized or rather pushed to be invested into cleaner technologies. Then you have the ETA system, the emission trading system that we were discussing. It is basically in a cap and trade model that this system follows. This cap and trade model is where the government is going to be setting a limit, which is a cap on the quantity of permissible emissions. Then there will be a quantity or volume of emissions which will be regulated or limited. The price is determined by the market, basically. So it is more of market determined trading system of limiting the cap, and then you are trading the uh, possibilities of permissible emissions. All right. Just a second, guys. Now, as far as the global practices are concerned, there are around 68 carbon pricing instruments that already exist. Chile, Switzerland, New Zealand, China, European Union have already been working on it. So we can also learn from the international standards. Now, as far as Indian initiatives are concerned, अब थोड़ा India perspective भी देख लेते हैं. Carbon pricing in India. Now, in case of India, of course, carbon markets have been underlined by the Energy Conservation Amendment Bill of 2022. It is a huge and a wonderful step which is momentous in its scope. It is empowering the government to establish carbon credit trading system within the country, also laying ground for formal carbon market within India. And it has huge potential because India is also moving towards providing services in financial sector, the financial services and the gift city, and becoming a center for arbitration and conciliation. Creating opportunities in this sector will also be basically supported by all the other things, because now it is not just about India. It is also going to allow the rest of the world to come together and also help India, not just help India, also invest in India, work with India, and create a stronger carbon emission and various other systems that can help incentivize investments and also help improve carbon emission targets. Now, or rather achieve them. India is moving towards a net zero economy by 2070. Net zero economy. Is there any net zero economy right now in the world? If yes, find out about it and write it in the comment section. Now, we have the PAT scheme. What is the full form of PAT scheme? Gaurav, Hello, Ramkumar, everybody. What is the full form of PAT scheme? This is a very common scheme, very simple one. No, no, form, thief, and trade. The PAT scheme was introduced as early as 2012. Basically, is a flagships program which is launched by BEE, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Ministry of Power के अंदर आता है, and energy intensive industrial production units basically has come up with the concept of designated consumer. Now, designated consumers, they are allotted the specific energy consumption reduction targets over a cycle of 3 years. So these designated consumers will be reducing their energy consumption based on the SEC targets. ठीक है जी, उसके बेसिस पर हम कार्बन प्राइसिंग का प्रोसेस इंडिया में भी इंप्लीमेंट कर रहे हैं. लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड हाउ इट इज वर्किंग. Now, the units that exceed the target, they are awarded energy saving certificates or ES certs, basically equal to 1 metric ton of oil, not carbon dioxide, but oil. ये याद रखिएगा, not CO2. Now DCs are unable to meet, those who are unable to meet the targets, they can purchase the difference based on these certificates. तो आप trading कर सकते हैं. So perform, achieve and trade. Could you just give me a couple of seconds? Now, these energy saving certificates, they can be traded at two power exchanges that we have. One is the PXIL, the other one is IEX. IEX के PXIL के शेयर्स बिकते हैं. अगर आप शेयर ट्रेडिंग करते हैं तो आप इन्हें खरीद सकते हैं. दे आर क्वाइट स्टेबल शेयर्स. ज्यादा उतार चढ़ाव नहीं आता है. ES, नाउ दिस इज नॉट अ फाइनेंशियल एडवाइस. दिस इज समथिंग मोर ऑफ एन इंफॉर्मेशन कि इनके शेयर्स भी हैं. खरीदने खरीदो, नहीं खरीदने मेरे को मत बोलना. Power Exchange India Limited, Indian Energy Exchange. These are the two power exchanges where trading of these basic certificates can be done. Okay, chalo. Emission trading system on an air pollutant basically is an innovative emission trading system on respiratory solid particulate matter RSPM के ऊपर पहला फर्स्ट पार्टिकुलर ट्रेडिंग सिस्टम इन द वर्ल्ड, जहां पर आप पार्टिकुलेट मैटर की वॉल्यूम और उसके कंटेंट के बेसिस पर यू आर ट्राइंग टू ट्रेड. This system is basically going to help you reduce solid particulate matter, particularly PM 2.5, PM 5, PM 10. उस सारे सिस्टम के अंदर you can also be trading. When you are reducing the emissions, then you earn those certificates. When you earn those certificates, you can trade those certificates, and it can also help those individuals who are not working towards earning these certificates, है ना? So it will be a more robust and a more inclusive way of moving towards a less carbon or low carbon economy. So scheme has been piloted, this particular scheme, this has been piloted in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and it is working well. आगे इसको scale up किया जा सकता है. Further, pollution targets, they are set for areas where ambient air quality standards and are very low. So you setting the pollution targets, आप Delhi चले जाइए, there are 2 to 3 dumping grounds that are making sure that the air around them are the ambient air around them, the quality is, i I hope you understand sarcasm, is marvelous. And so pollution targets are to be set on area basis. Ambient air quality standards fix kiye jayenge. Then permits are to be allocated, which can be traded later on after verification, of course, based on the gains and shortfalls with respect to the compliance towards those standards. Now, the scheme relies on a continuous emission monitoring system, CEMS, for setting the baseline and verification purposes. Unless and until CEMS happens, you will not be able to measure anything. अगर measuring नहीं होगी तो स्कीम कहाँ पे, किस बिना पर, किस बेसिस पर खड़ी होगी, बिकॉज कंपेरेटिव एनालिसिस तभी हो पाएगा. CEMS basically is an intrinsic element. It is basically to design the scheme, to help the scheme design, as it provides real-time information, helps avoid issues pertaining to spot checking and spurious reporting by third-party auditors. नहीं तो क्या होता है, दूसरों से पूछते हैं तो वो क्या करते हैं कि नहीं हमारा तो emission इतना नहीं हुआ है, इतना हुआ है. So because of that, there are sometimes even legal battles that are fought, and sometimes there are also challenges to ensure a smooth run of the scheme. Then further, the carbon cess, again an explicit way to deal with carbon pricing in India. This was introduced in 2010, levied on coal, lignite, peat particularly. है ना? Why? Because these are the lower forms or the less purer forms of coal, which emit more of emissions. Further, this is a form of excise duty. With the reduction and with the introduction of GST compensation cess, particularly carbon cess was abolished. It is now subsumed within the GST regime. Now, carbon dioxide emitting products like coal, kerosene, naphtha cracking होती है. Hello Kavya ji, welcome to the class. Lubes, फॉर एग्जाम्पल lubricants को lubes बोल रहे हैं, and LPG, they are included in the GST regime. Of course, there are 5 petroleum products. ये इसके बारे में आपको पता होना चाहिए. This is something that you should know. Good morning, Kavya ji. Uh, one is petrol, of course, diesel. Then you have natural gas. Natural gas के बारे में समझ लीजिए. Natural gas is not just equal to methane, but natural gas is methane, which is CH4. Certain portions are also, you have even some traces of, little traces of butane, propane, and even ethane. थोड़ी थोड़ी ट्रेसेस होती हैं इन गैसेस की, प्रोपेन, इथेन, ब्यूटेन की. इट इज नॉट, इट इज प्रिडोमिनेंटली मीथेन, बट नॉट ओनली मीथेन. तो नेचुरल गैस जब आता है तो हम उसको मीथेन से इक्वेट कर देते हैं, दैट इज फाइन. बट टू हैव अ बेसिक नॉलेज, इट कंटेन्स अदर traces of other gases as well. Okay, now what is the concern here is that the taxes do not correspond with carbon footprint in fossil fuels, and the वे दैट फॉसिल फ्यूल्स इम्पैक्ट द क्लाइमेट, उस चीज को कोरोबोरेट नहीं करता है, उसके जैसा नहीं चलता, उसके हिसाब से नहीं चलता है. इट इज मोर और लेस जस्ट अनदर टैक्स. It is not influencing anyone, or it is not changing the perception towards fossil fuels, etc. So that is a major problem. Okay. Now, this fails to provide the right price signals to the producers and consumers. Neither can it create, taxing regimes do not create incentives for investments in lesser carbon emitting technologies, nor is it changing or nudging the behavior of the end consumer to move towards less carbon emitting products or alternatives. For example, there is a subsidy on electric vehicles in the country. Hmm. How many of us are actually buying electric vehicles? अगर आपने पिछले कुछ सालों में इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल खरीदी है या व्हीकल खरीदा है, तो आप में से कितनों ने इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल खरीदा? Very few individuals are actually focusing on that. If I'm not wrong, I know I'm not wrong, depending upon the sales of the cars that we keep selling every single year, not everybody is going for electric vehicles. Why? Even after having subsidy from the government, why is it that we are not moving towards electric vehicles? That brings me to the question of the day with respect to this topic. काव्या जी, आई हैव गिवन अ लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस. हर एक टॉपिक के बाद मैंने क्वेश्चन दिया है, तो यहाँ पर भी मैं एक क्वेश्चन दे रहा हूँ. आई होप आप पीछे जाकर भी वो सारी चीजें देख लें, सो दैट यू आर एबल टू प्रैक्टिस राइटिंग आंसर्स एज वेल, है ना? चलो, जस्ट अ सेकेंड. दिस कैन बी अ क्वेश्चन. डिस्कस द challenges. Second, discuss the challenges faced by India in is bold, in bold और is लिखा, in implementing a robust EV policy, electric vehicle policy. Question mark. 200 words. Simple. Write down the answer to this question. And yes, I have shared a link, a couple of chats before this. अगर आप notice करेंगे काव्या जी, I have shared a Telegram link with you guys for the Sriram IAS Telegram channel, and I'm sharing it again. Telegram channel link. Make sure that you follow this link. ठीक है जी। वो उसमें लिंक में नहीं शो करेगा इसे, बट आपको कॉपी पेस्ट करना पड़ेगा। और यू कैन सर्च ऑन टेलीग्राम श्रीराम आईएएस, SRIRAMS ऑनलाइन। तो ये सर्च करेंगे आपको श्रीराम आईएएस का चैनल का लिंक मिल जाएगा, एंड यू शुड ज्वाइन दैट चैनल सो दैट you can keep in touch with all other students, what they are watching, what they are seeing, what they are getting, तो आपको भी access मिल जाए। ठीक है जी। So write down the answer to this question, and of course keep practicing on all the questions that I am sharing the with the entire set of topics। चलिए, renewable energy purchase obligation and renewable energy certificates, this again is well within the domain of carbon pricing. Electricity distribution companies, open access consumers, and captive power producers. Captive power producers, basically, these three types of or three categories of individuals, they have to purchase a certain portion of their electricity from renewable energy sources. जितना ज्यादा करेंगे उतना ही बेहतर उनके पास सर्टिफिकेट होगा। दैट सर्टिफिकेट कैन देन फर्दर बी utilized in various ways. Now these terms, they are basically termed as renewable energy purchase obligations or RPOs. They are mandated by the Electricity Act of 2003. SERC, the State Electricity Regulatory Commission, is responsible to fix the minimum RPO for every single state. So state wise different होते हैं, and the obligated entities, they are to purchase RECs, the certificates, just in case they are unable to cope with the RPO targets, तो वो खरीद लेते हैं। तो वही बेसिकली आपकी कार्बन प्राइसिंग मैकेनिज्म अदरवाइज एप्लीकेबल है, वो यहाँ पर भी एप्लीकेबल हो जाती है। वो परफॉर्म अचीव ट्रेड वाला सिस्टम हो जाता है। नाउ फर्दर यू हैव certain concerns. The problem is with the enforcement and compliance. Every single policy has this problem of enforcement and compliance. With respect to RPO, it remains weak further, and it has persisting obstacle towards India's ambition towards expanding renewable energy production in the country. Excise taxes on diesel and on petrol. As of May 2020, India had the highest petrol and diesel taxes. And this is a major concern given that even in these times, there was a comparison that was done on some social media platform. I'm sharing that concern itself, that we are providing oil to crude oil and of course the crude oil products as well, petroleum products, to various other neighboring countries of ours. And when you compare the prices, these countries, the prices of petrol and diesel, for example, is cheaper compared to the country from where they are sourcing this products, petroleum products from. इंडिया के अंदर पेट्रोल अगर 90 रुपीस के आसपास है, so for example in Nepal it is around 70 rupees. There is a huge price difference that exists with respect to even those countries where we are supplying crude oil and various other products of crude oil. That is something that we have to look at. So when it comes to excise and taxes on diesel and petrol, India is amongst those countries which has the highest taxes on petrol and diesel. Further, the concern is not just the high taxes, but also the fact that it is not considering the environmental considerations, and it does not really account for the carbon footprint of these fuels. तो मतलब टैक्स लगाया भी, हाथ को आया मुंह ना लगा, that thing. So you are applying taxes, but those taxes are not working in improving anything. That is the problem. Now, what is the significance of this entire process of carbon pricing? So one thing is, when you put a price on carbon, एक ना सोशल कॉस्ट ऑफ कार्बन निकल कर आ जाता है, एक आइडिया, एक थॉट बन जाता है। दैट आइडिया, दैट थॉट इज बेस्ड ऑन द फैक्ट दैट yes, we certainly will be impacted by carbon emissions. We certainly will be impacted based on the emissions and the kind of choices that we are making today. I keep reminding myself of this wonderful initiative, which is basically long lost in the list of current affairs. Green good deeds. Green good deeds. This is a very good example. use this when you are talking about the impact of carbon pricing. अगर carbon pricing का ढंग से impact ही नहीं आएगा, if it is not working in line with the agenda that you are using this policy for, what is the benefit of carbon pricing, right? So for that reason, one thing is we need to put price. When you put a price on something, it becomes relevant and important. You start discussing it, and it compels companies to adjust their investment portfolios as well. Then carbon price is deemed to be an effective tool to incentivize future investments, maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. In 2021, for example, approximately 84 billion US dollars. This is BN is billion. I like writing it in short. पैसे ज्यादा होते हैं, zeros ज्यादा हैं, but words छोटे. It was recorded in carbon pricing revenue, and as a result, higher carbon prices, increased auctioning from emission trades, revenue from new instruments was happening. So it was enhancing the green economy of the country, that is United States. Now it was approximately in total, not just United States, 84 billion was recorded in 2021 alone. Carbon pricing, moreover, can be a useful fiscal tool as well. It can be a prominent source for augmenting government revenues. So it can also help you generate better revenues. Now, typical carbon pricing policies, they allocate government revenues in three ways. One is by investment in climate related clean technologies. Then you have the general budget and also the income tax cuts or rebates that you deploy for those individuals who are pursuing the better or cleaner technologies. तो वहां पर आप या तो टैक्स रिबेट दे रहे हैं, या टैक्स कट दे रहे हैं, या जनरल बजट का हिस्सा है, या फिर आप इन्वेस्टमेंट की तरफ फोकस कर रहे हैं. दिस इज हाउ typically the carbon pricing policies are designed. Again, all of this is a very explicit way of following carbon pricing mechanism. There are implicit ways as well. If you remember, we have already covered it a couple of minutes back, right? Then investments in sustainable industries, they can generate 3 times as many full-time jobs from government spending in fossil fuels. सरकार अगर 1 रुपया खर्च करती है फॉसल फ्यूल इंडस्ट्री के अंदर, and same 1 rupee is invested in say sustainable industries, it can generate 3 times the jobs. More jobs are there in sustainable industries. In fact, you can have specializations. You can push for a change in the education system, particularly the graduation education system as well, where you can create newer avenues of different kinds of jobs. तो ये चीज इंडस्ट्री स्पेसिफिक जॉब क्रिएशन जो है, ये this will link the difference or the gap. It will bridge the gap between those who are graduating and the kind of skills that are required by the industry. All right. Well, further, you can also follow preemptive. Preemptive is होने से पहले पूर्वानुमान लगाना. So preemptively designing effective domestic climate policies using carbon pricing mechanisms like the EU system that exists, for example, the EU carbon border adjustment mechanism. This can also help you offset, certain border tariffs that you are paying. तो अगर आप इस system के साथ भी चलते हैं, which is basically relating to international trade, right? Could you just give me a couple of seconds? Just a couple of seconds. Yeah. Just a second. So this can be one method. Further, GST regime, VAT scheme, they are well-functioning systems that already exist in India. You can leverage them, scale them up, use strong carbon pricing frameworks, and combination of both as a carbon tax and emission trading system can be utilized. So दोनों चीजों को mix match करके आप utilize कर सकते हैं. Again, the agenda is to achieve our targets towards sustainable development goals. Global climate policy groups, they have been debating the inception of a climate club as such. अगर ये क्लाइमेट क्लब बनता है, then India needs to be playing a very strong role in this climate club. Remember this climate club. If you have not heard of it, I would recommend in the comment section of this video, give me what climate club is. Tell me what is it. Search about it, read about it. Just two liners. Two liners are enough. Okay, you already have to write only 150 words, maybe 200, 250 words. 200-250 वर्ड से ज्यादा तो वैसे नहीं लिखना होता है. तो how would you make sure that you are also incorporating things and a way forward लिखना, आपने introduction लिखना, body conclusion, you have to write down everything. So not more than one lines or two lines on such things. Okay. Further, the current G20 troika, which is basically the three developing countries, India, Indonesia, Brazil, IIB, basically, right? The troika. Troika means the three. So G20 troika, which is India, Indonesia, Brazil, they present a unique and opposite, not opposite, opposite movement to push for global carbon pricing framework, which we have been working on. In fact, the principle of CBDR, common but differentiated responsibilities, जिसकी वजह से यूएस को काफी तकलीफ हुई थी, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट इट बैक आउट ऑफ, एंड basically scapegoated out of the Paris Climate Deal. The Just Transition Declaration and various other climate policy architecture and designing of carbon policies at domestic level. Here, India is in good state, is at good speed, and is working fine towards increasingly decarbonizing the future for not just India, but also for the world. So that is how things are. Now, as far as the question is concerned, this topic's question, one question I've already given you. Another question is this. Discuss the impact and थोड़ा सा और सिंपल करते हैं. In context with PAT scheme, discuss the challenges towards carbon pricing mechanism, effective implementation in effective implementation in India. तो ये इस टॉपिक का क्वेश्चन रहा, right? 200 words. Let's keep it at that. Write down the answers and keep practicing. So, moving on to the next topic, and that is land degradation and desertification. Now, when it comes to land degradation and desertification, government is planning to bring convergence between Manrega scheme and Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, so that we can help restore the degraded land, reverse desertification, or move towards de-desertification. There are multiple initiatives here that we have to discuss. So let's do that as well. According to the Desertification and Land Degradation Atlas of 2021, remember this, use this as a quote. At least 30% of India's total geographical area is under the category of degraded land. A very big announcement about it. है ना? Acha, along with that, I have another announcement for you all, and that is with respect to the initiatives that we at Sriram IAS have brought for you all. We are offering a flat 25% discount with respect to all the offerings and all the courses that we, Sriram's IAS, are bringing for you guys on Unacademy platform. You should remember this referral code, that is SRIRAMS, that is Sriram's. You use this referral code, then you will be able to access this particular discount offer. Now, this discount offer is on various courses. For example, the geography optional course, the batches have started from 16th of June. You should be able to watch those sessions on Unacademy platform. Then you also have the foundation batch, which we are running. The foundation batch itself is poised with entire aspects of prelims, of mains, of interviews, all the stages of the exam in a very structured manner for 2024. If you're planning to give the exam, this is the course that you should try out. This course is available, of course, on the Unacademy platform. Along with that, you should remember one more thing. What is that? The phone number is 8585858585. One, two, three. Okay. So remember this phone number as well, 8585858585. Right. Apart from that, we also are offering anthropology optional. Apart from the rest of the list of optionals, including public administration that I take, sociology optional that Jan ma'am takes, and then you have economy optional, then you have history optional, geography optional, many optional subjects. Around 8 to 9 optional subjects are being offered by Sriram's IAS on Unacademy platform. Make sure that you follow the educators, follow me on Unacademy, follow Anshum sir on Unacademy, follow Sriram sir on Unacademy, follow all the educators of Sriram's IAS on Unacademy, so that you have access to their free live classes. Only yesterday, I had taken a class with respect to answer writing in public administration. तो वो classes regularly चलती रहती हैं. आज फिर से वो 10 बजे class है. Make sure that you are a part of the entire group, the part of entire community that is what that's like a close knit family that we start working together towards achieving your goals. Okay, well, now let's get back to the business. Let's talk about land degradation and desertification. Now, as far as the topic is concerned, the introduction itself, you can utilize this data. ये तो पहले याद कर लो. Almost one third of India's land is today degraded. ये चीज याद रखना. Degraded land category के अंदर आता है according to the Desertification and Land Degradation Atlas of 2021. Remember this. Further, what are the causes of land degradation and desertification? Number one, multiple forces are there, including extreme weather, climatic conditions, particularly drought conditions, human activities that pollute or degrade the quality of soils, and also the land utility. If you notice, even Jaggi Vasudevji is also talking about all these initiatives and all the land degradation, the soil pollution that is happening. He's been talking about it. Now, the impact of land degradation and desertification, there can be environmental impacts, of course. Because of that, you will have water logging, you will have increased salinity, contamination of the ground and surface water, loss of natural nutrients, soil erosion. These are the basics of the problems. Then you have loss of soil fertility. Unscientific cropping practices are also causing harm. So it is basically a vicious cycle that we are going for, because fertilizers की जरूरत पड़ेगी because of the lack of available nutrients from the soil, and then those fertilizers will also further reduce the quality of the land itself. So this is like a vicious cycle that we are stuck in. Waterlogging happens when the water table gets saturated for various reasons. For example, over irrigation, for example, seepage from canals, inadequate drainage, and a very weak ecological system at agricultural scale. Potential impacts on human health is huge. I'll give you an example. Just a second. Now, one of the examples that I keep giving is the Majha region of Punjab, where there is increased number of cases of cancer, particularly because of the polluted groundwater. and that groundwater is being utilized. And that groundwater is not just being utilized for drinking purposes, it's also being utilized for irrigation activities. And that is also enhancing what you, what you know as bioaccumulation or bioenhancement. That is where the problem lies. This is one of the examples. There are multiple examples. For example, very recently, there are the newer technologies and the newer chemical fertilizers and the way pesticides are being used. Clearly, after the first green revolution, it has had a huge environmental cost that we are paying even today. Negatively affects the food production, livelihoods of individual farmers and the associated activities, allied activities, production, provisions of other ecosystem goods and services. All of that is impacted in a negative sense. आपकी वहां पर फ्लोरा एंड फौना का जो इकोलॉजिकल बैलेंस है, बायोडाइवर्सिटी बैलेंस है, that is muddled up. Higher threats towards malnutrition because of reduced food and water supplies. Waterborne, airborne, foodborne diseases, they start to come up because of poor hygiene, lack of clean water. Also, there are certain global efforts that we need to realize when it comes to combating land degradation. The most prominent one is the 1994 Convention of United Nations on Combating Desertification. The UNCCD is the only legally binding framework to set up and to address desertification, because अगर ये नहीं किया तो problems बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ जाएंगी. There are 197 parties to this convention, 196 country parties, and one European Union, basically. So the convention is based on the principles of participation, partnership, and decentralization. ये words प्रीलिम्स में कोई मायने नहीं रखते हैं, बट मेंस के अंदर आप इसका एक डायग्राम बना सकते हो. यू कैन इंक्लूड देम in in a circular format. For example, you can draw a diagram like this this है ना. तो एंड बीच में आप UNCCD लिख दो, या आप डी डेजर्टिफिकेशन प्रोसेसेस लिख दो, या कुछ इस तरीके से यू कैन ड्रॉ डायग्राम्स एंड कैन हेल्प योर केस when it comes to mains examination. Then you have the Bonn Germany के अंदर, launched by the government of Germany in 2011 with the help of IUCN. This challenge has surpassed 150 million hectare milestone in 2017 as far as pledges are concerned. This is a global goal to bring 150 million hectares of degraded, deforested landscapes, restore them by 2020, and 350 million hectares by 2030. So we have already surpassed the 150 million hectare milestone for pledges in 2017 itself. Now we need to move towards the 2030 target, and then we have to increase it to 2050 targets, so on and so forth. This is one thing which, this challenge is one thing that we have to keep pushing for. But individually, as far as the country specific efforts are concerned, we will also have to work on that. For example, the Great Green Wall Initiative, this was launched in 2007 for African Union, being implemented around 22 African countries. कॉन्टिनेंट के जो डिग्रेडेड लैंडस्केप्स हैं उनको ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग मिलियंस ऑफ लाइव्स इन साहेल रीजन. There are a couple of regions, Sahel region and Maghreb region of Africa. Make sure that you know them. If you do know about it, give me a thumbs up in the chat section. Chat section में मुझे साथ के साथ बता दीजिएगा. If you know what I'm saying. If you don't, then also let me know. Then I'll give you the answer. In what portion of Africa do you find Sahel region? What portion? I'll tell you. It is basically, if this is Africa, right? It is somewhere around this region. This is the Sahel region. And where is the Maghreb region? Where is the Maghreb region? Have you heard of Maghreb? If you haven't, then I'm there to help you out. Is basically change the color. is this is the region. Northern Africa. Right, right. Correct, Gaurav. Correct. Now, so Great Green Wall Initiative. Yes, it is Northern Africa. यही पोर्शन है, यही तो है. अच्छा, डोंट चेंज द कलर. इज दैट सो? वो सिर्फ कलर एक पर्टिकुलर रीजन के लिए चेंज करने के लिए सोचा, नॉट अदरवाइज. अच्छा, so this Great Green Wall initiative launched in 2007 by the African Union, not by any other initiative at international level. African Union का initiative है, implementing across 22 odd African countries, where they are trying to transform millions of lives by restoring the degraded landscapes. Now, India's initiatives, for example, the first and foremost is being run by ISRO. This is the national level land degradation mapping. जब तक पता ही नहीं होगा कौन कौन सा लैंड डिग्रेड हो रहा है, जस्ट बिकॉज द रिपोर्ट हैज सेड दैट 30% ऑफ द लैंड इज डिग्रेडेड, द एटलस इनिशिएटिव, दैट डज नॉट वर्क. That really does not help the cause. We need to pinpoint what land is actually being degraded and because of what reasons. So that is where the ISRO initiative comes into play. ISRO, along with various partner institutions under the National Resources Census Mission of basically ISRO and various other departments and other organizations, towards generating information of land degradation. This information is being generated at 1 is to 50,000 scale using a 23-meter resolution IRS data. So this is a satellite based data collection and dissemination process where you are mapping the entire country's degraded land. Then you also have the desertification and land degradation atlas of India. This is published by again ISRO and the Space Application Center of ISRO in Ahmedabad, provides a state-wise area for degraded land, and the time frame is 2018-2019. तो 18-19 2018-19 के टाइम से comparable आपको ये बताता है. Now this provides a change analysis of 15 years के duration में कैसे कैसे changes आया from 2003 2005 till 2018-19. Then you also have UNCCD, which India is signatory to. India has hosted 14th session of Conference of Parties, COP 14 for UNCCD. UNCCD की अलग से Conference of Parties होती हैं. And in September 2019, it had happened. Further, India is also moving towards the national commitments of LDN, land degradation neutrality. Now, let me tell you one thing. I don't know if you have seen a question on land degradation neutrality or LDN initiative, but it is around 3 4 years. No, 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 not 3 4 years. Ever since 2017, I've been looking at it, land degradation neutrality, and I've been hoping to see a question in prelims examination, not mains, prelims में land degradation neutrality से related. Let me tell you one thing, this can be a prospective question in the upcoming years, particularly given that land degradation as a topic has again come in news. इस वजह से nodal ministry for implementation, of course, is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Then you also have bond challenge that is being implemented in India at the UNFCCC framework conference of parties in 2015 in Paris. India had joined the bond challenge, which is basically a voluntary challenge, and had pledged to bring into restoration around 13 million hectares of degraded land. So you should remember this, and this was supposed to be done by 2020, additional 8 million, extra 8 million, which means around 21. That is wonderful. That is wonderful. Yes, I know that. I know that Sivasankari ma'am actually covers that, but I had very less clue. I was not able to attend her session, है ना, for that reason. But make sure that you cover this topic. आपको मिल गया तो that is a wonderful thing. Purpose यही है ना? That is like that proves my point that every initiative that Sriram IAS is bringing you closer to more robust preparation strategies. Chalo. Now, Flagship schemes including Fasal Bima Yojana. Fasal Bima Yojana basically is relating to not just, see, Fasal Bima Yojana is a very wrongly interpreted scheme. It's not about crop insurance. It's also about the notified area and the notified crop, because the notified area and the notified crops are decided on the basis of soil fertility, because it incorporates various parameters from soil health card scheme. Again, one of my favorite schemes when it comes to agriculture, सॉइल हेल्थ कार्ड स्कीम, वन ऑफ माय फेवरेट्स। बहुत सुंदर सुंदर नाम है, कृषि सिंचाई योजना, एक्स वाई जेड, बहुत अच्छे अच्छे नाम है, बट माय फेवरेट इज सॉइल हेल्थ कार्ड स्कीम, बिकॉज दिस कैन बी लाइक द आधार कार्ड और द सोशल सिक्योरिटी नंबर प्रोसेस फॉर द एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर। जैसा सोशल सिक्योरिटी सिस्टम हम ऑल सोशो पॉलिटिकल राइट्स के लिए करना चाहते हैं, फॉर एग्जाम्पल access to government services, similarly in agriculture sector the soil health card can act as one torch bearing, one single one stop solution for a lot of problems. But there is also a suggestion that we need to converge Manrega funds and various other funds so that we are implementing these flagship schemes in a much greater, in a much better sense, right? Then the present activities, for example, ridge area treatment, drainage line treatment, soil moisture conservation, rainwater harvesting, nursery raising for afforestation, horticulture, pasture development, all these things are being done by DOLR, Department of Land Resources. What is the scheme that is run by DOLR, which is also a part of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana? What is that component of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana which is being run by or handled by DOLR? If you remember that, mention that in the chat section. और if you are watching it recorded, तो comment section में बता दीजिएगा, ठीक है जी। So what is the way forward? The way forward is simple. You have to combat desertification, land degradation, you have to mitigate effects, land degradation, neutrality, conservation, sustainable use. All these are basically rhetorics, all the things which are relevant and associated towards the desertification processes. One thing is certain, when it comes to this topic, you have to remember the impact of quality of soil plus impact of land utility. I will talk about it. Just give me a couple of seconds. Land utility, utility and also land ownership. तो यहाँ पर क्या है कि it's not just about climate change or de-desertification or land quality, etc. It is also about the utility of land, the repurposing of agriculture land for commercial purposes, for example, the impact of infrastructure development, the push for enhanced utilization of say water resources, etc. That is, of course, as far as the environmental aspect is concerned. But there is one more aspect which is more socio-political and economical in its aspect, and that is land ownership. When it comes to land ownership, when you are having major problems with respect to land titling, the concept of titling, be it conclusive, be it presumptive titling, then it reduces the utility of the land, and it also reduces the, by fragmentation of land, it reduces the ways and means that a person can deploy to make sure that such a land's utility is maximized. वो नहीं पाता है. Why? Because when you go for fragmented pieces of land, people have lesser resources, monetary resources to sustain the quality of land. इसके लिए आपको चाहिए होता है जहां पर आप land based associations create करें. You should have civil society organizations pushing for more and enhanced and a robust scheme of things when it comes to your cooperative farming. Because if you want to deploy good deeds or good practices when it comes to land degradation in agriculture sector, then individual farmer is not poised with relevant experience, relevant resources, and of course not just physical resources, monetary resources as well. तो वो नहीं होने की वजह से कोऑपरेटिव फार्मिंग इज अ बेटर ऑल्टरनेटिव, एंड यूज दीज ऑल्टरनेटिव mechanisms to ensure that de-desertification happens, land degradation can be restored and reversed. This should be the process. All right. Chalo. Let's right now stop the topic and write down the question. The question for the topic is this topic's question. रुको. The recent push for restoration, not restoring, restoration, restoration of degraded land is an initiative too important, too late. Comment. Mark, was 200 words, right? So, note down this question, write answers to these questions, practice them, connect with all the mentors and teachers of Sriram IAS on Unacademy platform. Follow these classes. These are Saturday, Sunday classes, 10 a.m. 2.5 घंटे बैठते हैं हम. We discuss important and relevant stuff when it comes to your preparation for mains. This is the Mission Mains 2023 that Sriram IAS has brought for you guys. Now, before ending, again, just a small recap of all the initiatives that we are bringing for you guys. We have started off with the anthropology optional. We are offering a 25% discount. This is only for a short span. We are offering you geography optional as well, apart from all the rest 8 to 9 optional subjects that we are offering, including public administration that I handle. You have PSIR, you have economics, you have history, you have geography, you have sociology, and various other subjects, including anthropology. Yes, you also have a foundation batch where prelims, mains, and interviews, all the aspects of the exam are being covered. ठीक है जी. Remember to use the referral code, that is SRIRAMS, Srirams. If you use that, you can get instant 25% discount. Also, make sure to keep calm and stay tuned to all the initiatives that Sriram IAS bring for you guys. This is me, Sanadat Bhardwaj, signing off today. For now, आप लोगों से फिर मुलाकात होगी. All right. Next week, same time, same place. Make sure to keep attending these sessions. In sessions को attend करते रहिए. If you have any doubts whatsoever, any doubts, then you can ask right away. If you want to discuss anything, then you can ask right away. But for now, keep calm and stay tuned to Sri Ram's IAS. Thank you so much. Take care and God bless you.